All right, it's time for Yogi and The BeachMan. Hi, I'm Jim the Yogi.
And I'm Rick Beach the BeachMan.
We're two Michigan transplants now living in Southwest Florida.
In fact, we're cousins born in 1964, just a month apart.
I like to meditate.
And I like to play bass in a band.
I'm into chanting Om.
And I'm into throwing down some classic rock.
But together, we're on a mission.
To promote people that are helping other people.
We want to make the world a better place.
One conversation at a time.
So sit back
Turn up the volume.
and get ready to laugh
Because we like to have fun
while we spread the love.
Interviewing lovely people, yes, we have fun.
All right, it's time for Yogi and The BeachMan. Hi, I'm Jim the Yogi.
And I'm Rick Beach the BeachMan.
We're two Michigan transplants now living in Southwest Florida.
In fact, we're cousins born in 1964, just a month apart.
I like to meditate.
And I like to play bass in a band.
I'm into chanting Om.
And I'm into throwing down some classic rock.
But together, we're on a mission.
To promote people that are helping other people.
We want to make the world a better place.
One conversation at a time.
So sit back
Turn up the volume.
and get ready to laugh
Because we like to have fun
while we spread the love.
Interviewing lovely people, yes, we have fun.
Welcome back to Yogi and The BeachMan. Today we are with Lincoln Stoller. He's a physicist, a therapist, a hypnotherapist, author, and podcaster. Lincoln, welcome to the show. We appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
No, thanks. How do I address you? As Jim or Yogi or something?
Whatever you prefer. I can be Yogi or Jim.
I'm just
All right.
Rick.
Okay. All right. Good. Thanks.
You don't want to be the BeachMan?
Well, I am the beach man, but I'm also Rick. So
Oh, glad to be here. Interested to hear the audience, who I won't hear, but I'll get the vibe.
Yeah. So, we podcast with people from all over the country, really. Where are you coming to us from?
You mean geographically or
Yeah.
conceptually? That's
start with
actually a reasonable geographically. Well, it doesn't really tell you. I'm located in Vancouver Island, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not a Vancouver Island person yet. I've been here 7 years. So I came from New York,
Mm-hmm.
and I spent 10 years in Texas. I like that. And, another 10 years in Massachusetts, going to school, and traveled a lot. So here I am because I like the Pacific Northwest. At least I thought I would. I love the trees.
Mm-hmm. Trees are
And
beautiful.
yeah. So that's where I am, up with all the Canadians up here. I feel like I'm a goose among the chickens or a chicken among the geese, something like that. That's right. It's the Canadian geese that I'm
The Canadian
around.
geese, yeah.
why is it? Why do you feel different amongst the Canucks?
Well, two reasons I've concluded. One is it's the West Coast, and the West Coast is just different from the East Coast. I know that from living in Berkeley for a year, having relatives on the West Coast. And Canada's different from the US. Very, the demographics, the population distribution, the way it's very segregated culturally and nationally. And everybody around here lives in 600 square foot houses with 400 square foot RVs out in their front yard. So it's like a little weird,
That is a little
And they
weird.
drive BMWs and, Teslas. It's like West Coast LA almost, but it's Canadian. So here I am. I don't, and I work with people internationally, really, as a therapist. So I'm not connected all that locally.
So you work
So
as
that-
a therapist, you do a lot online?
I try to do most online because it's so convenient. But some of the things I do, I'm doing in person, like the neurofeedback stuff or the brain training. But that's starting to become a little more mobile, and I'm working on that so that people remotely can start to understand their brains, which is important.
Can you tell us more about that? Sounds fascinating.
Well, it goes in another direction perhaps, but I, as a therapist, whatever that is, that's a very variable definition to begin with. Talk to people about what they think and how they feel and how their, well, you could say brains work, but it might be better to say how they react to things, how they are stimulated or triggered by things, a lot of which is habitual or reactive, or I don't mean to, I could say ancestral. What I mean is built in your childhood and, your adult life, adolescence. So in a very mechanical way, some aspects of your brain are predictable. How quickly you get angry, um, how focused you are, how good you are with language, a whole spectrum of things. And some of them can actually be gleaned from looking at the strength of the electrical emanations from the parts of your brain that seem to be involved in those things. And in some cases, those places are localized, but in many cases they're not. So emotions, for example, are generally deep brain structures that integrate a lot of things, but some emotions like anger and fear are very localized and above your right eye, which is why they used ice picks to lobotomize people in that location. And training your brain as opposed to surgery is a reversible and productive way of changing your focus and your skills. You can change the fundamental things like how you react and how quickly you react, and other things that most people think are incidental, but they're not.
Did you say opposed to surgery?
As opposed to surgery, as different from surgery.
For
Neurosurgery. What used to be, I don't know, all I can think of is lobotomy, which was only done for psychological reasons. But, things like traumatic brain injury, is ischemic events, strokes. You can,
okay. Yeah, I missed that
epilepsy.
part about I missed that traumatic brain injury thing. I was like,
No, I know
didn't
what you
pick
mean.
that part up, so I'm sorry about that.
Well, see, some of the stuff I like to do, and I don't do it as much as I'd like to, is dealing with people with physical illnesses, dealing with the emotional and mental aspect of their physical illnesses or their recovery. So some things are neural, like epilepsy, like trying to think, how would I characterize? Well, emotional management to some extent. Um, I'm thinking of traumatic brain injury, where you lose certain functions and you can regain them, depending on what they are, and to varying degrees, by retraining your brain. It's sort of like relearning. It's like if you have a stroke and you lose the use of a limb, to some extent, you can regain it through training. Or if you've been through an accident and you've broken bones, you can regain function by training. Well, your brain can be retrained to regain functions, and it really can. But it's not what people generally know. It's not well defined. You can't easily describe it, which is why I tend to defer talking about it with people, because people come to me with front burner issues that are prominent, and they may be curious about the workings of your brain, but it's not the fire they're trying to put out. So I can launch into it and often lose them, or I can sort of like intimate that it's important and get around to it when there's an opportunity. So it's that's the sort of quick and dirty description of brain training and what its purpose is.
Okay. And are you doing this like through repetitive positive thinking, affirmations? How are you retraining brains?
Oh, you do it with a electroencephalograph. You put a contacts on your scalp and you watch your brainwaves and you try to consciously change them and habitually rearrange them by looking at what they actually are. And the results can be quick and subtle and pervasive. So, for example, this is sort of the best example I know. I'd often in the past go to a friend's house and do this training to whoever happened to walk into their kitchen. And they had a lot of people walking into their kitchen who didn't know anything about what I was doing. And I would just sit them down and put the contacts on their scalp and give them feedback and tell them to, make the sounds larger or whatever it is that I was trying to do. And I remember one guy saying, the next day I saw him, he said, it didn't do anything to me. I feel no different. But everybody's meeting me in this grocery store and they're really nice to me. And people are especially nice to me. And I got a job offer. And yeah, I said, well, that's what happens when your character changes. You don't really notice it because you're looking at the same front window, but you're driving a different vehicle and everyone responds. So even when it has a positive effect, it's hard to explain to people what's changed. It's like you're walking around with a smile on your face and you don't know it. I mean, who looks at their face except in the morning? So that's how it works. And I see Rick smiling there. He's thinking something, but okay.
No, I was thinking something on that note. When you, I mean, definitely what you give out, you get back. And I always think about, I don't bring this up a lot, but I play guitar in a rock and roll band here locally. And I always try to give that out because that's what I want back from the people around me that are in the audience. So when you said that, hey, walking around the grocery store with a smile on your face, different attitude. And I didn't always do that, but until I saw a video of myself with the concentration face on, and I really have to get over that. And I have gotten over it to give out that, more positive vibe, which is basically what you just explained.
Well, it's very subtle. Like I get a lot of shit because I don't smile enough, and the most recent shit I got was from what do you call these? The websites that advertise therapy, marketing,
like BetterHelp.com or something.
Yeah, and there are a lot of them. So I was told, your photograph is too stern, and you should be like all the other people with this like smile on your face. And I thought, therapy doesn't work if you're looking for smiles. It's one of those things. The people who make progress in therapy are the ones who are ready to confront what's not making them smile, because that's what their problem is. So if you are attracted to somebody because they have a nice smile on your face, it's usually because you're trying to avoid or regain or somehow correct other people's problems. And so I really object to all those pictures of smiling therapists as a kind of, no, you don't make progress. It's like, can you imagine going to couples counseling where they're trying to convince you to be happy and nice to each other? It's like, if you have a problem, that's not going to solve it, because that's where it started. And, it's like trying to float, waterlogged wood. Anyway, so there is a place for the stern look, but it's touchy, right? Because I lose a lot of clients. Well, I don't even get them as clients. I lose a lot of prospects because I'm not happy enough. But the truth is that I make a lot more progress with my clients because I don't focus on you being happy. I focus on you changing things to more consonance or reality. Anyway, like I say, you don't.
I think if I was looking for a therapist, and for sure would be attracted at first to the pretty blondie with a beautiful smile. But if I saw you there all glum, I'm like, man, this guy's a little more serious, more up my alley. So I think it probably works both ways.
Yeah, and the whole difference between is serious and glum the same things? Well, I don't think so, but I think a lot of people do think so. Serious, what do they think? High school teachers, when do you encounter serious people in real life? Your accountant. I mean, how many positive, your parents' face when you walk in the door at Thanksgiving? Well, that's usually happy, but not always. So, serious faces aren't always inviting, but they are to me. Anyway, so much for smiles.
No,
I like
I'm the same way. We're on the same page as far as that goes. Well, I had to get a new driver's license picture last week, and I tried intensely to look as unsmiley as possible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just the
Well,
old
that's
mean,
interesting.
the mean Rick face. Just
Let's see it.
my driver's license.
No, your mean Rick face.
the mean Rick face.
No,
Yeah.
it just like got
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
just
No.
kind of that. Yeah, because
Grumpy old man face.
because I'm not the least bit happy when I have to go in there and let them extort $25 of me because I moved.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the DMV, but they have a reputation for being unfriendly. I don't know why. I think it's because everybody has to go there and they're overworked.
And they steal your money or my.
Yeah.
Well, steal your money. Let's talk about that for a while. Okay. Well, you guys are in Florida, is that right?
We are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Florida is an interesting place. Very strange it's sort of like Los Angeles on the East Coast.
How
I don't
so?
know. I don't know because of
Like,
people wear Hawaiian shirts and it's humid and warm and conservative like Orange County, and I don't know what else. It's got a lot of immigrants, just like
Definitely, yeah. I
true,
guess it's
yeah.
all that. I haven't spent much time in LA, but I mean, I really like it here. It's you got it all right. It's sunny, warm.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of Spanish speaking
yeah.
and
Hispanic.
lots of Mexican. I mean, roofers and stuff like that, and a lot of labor guys. But I don't know. But it is where we live is very conservative. So,
Yeah,
but
well.
I never picked LA. I always figured LA was exactly the opposite.
Really? No, very conservative.
Politically, as far as left way,
California's liberal, but LA is not generally thought of as liberal. Southern LA, anyway. Anyway, let's not get too geographic about things. Well, let's talk about the big issues.
Well, I want to touch on something that I picked up on. I was watching a little bit of the video about the book that you wrote on COVID, and we often talk about COVID on this podcast. And you said that the psyche can do for your. You talked about what the psyche can do for your immune system, or hinted about that. Can you share a little bit about how the psyche can boost your immune system?
Well, this gets to the whole issue of hypnotherapy, and I think the quick answer is that you can psychologically do for your immune system anything that you can do pharmaceutically, which is a radical statement.
Mm-hmm.
So, the pharmaceuticals that affect your immune system are hormones and, mostly hormones. And those are released, many of them, by your brain, also by your gut, but they're connected, brain and gut. So that changing I don't know what it is that actually you change, but somewhere down the line, there's hormonal changes. The idea of hypnotherapy is that it's motivated more emotionally than intellectually. So you wouldn't have talk therapy to increase your immune system. You would have hypnotherapy. Now, a lot of stuff is weird. So hypnotherapy has been shown to make warts fall off, which is totally crazy because warts are a virus. And I don't know, reliable statistical double-blinded experiments, but anecdotally it's widely known. And there are a lot of hypnotherapists who attest to the ability to make people's warts fall off. And I just don't understand that. So it's like I said, I'm a physicist. I'd like to understand things. No one's helped me understand that. And in hypnotherapy, people aren't too concerned about explanations. They're more concerned about effects.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I wrote this book on COVID, because I felt if hypnotherapy can make warts fall off, I don't know how it does it. It can do other things too. And I've had some success working with people with kidney problems and, traumatic brain injury. That's kind of not fair because it's your brain to begin with. But what other problems? I don't know. The kidney patient stands out. Um, I want to say that beyond your immune system, perhaps your emotional state can affect your other organs too. Well, typical ones that react to your emotion are your skin. So a lot of skin problems are emotional. And I do have clients with skin problems, and I am successful in, in dealing with those kind of skin problems. I mean, we're not talking about burns, we're talking about rashes and psoriasis and eczema and things like that. So I wanted to extend that. I wanted to say, well, what about heart problems? What about lung problems? What about kidney problems and stomach problems and joint problems, eye problems, anything you can imagine? What can your mind do aside from like making you feel happy or otherwise positive to actually address these physical problems? So I wrote this book and I focused on COVID and COVID's particular spectrum of illnesses, which we mostly associate with the lungs, but it actually has attacked other places too, commonly. I've had it twice, and first time it attacked my gut, second time it attacked my lungs, and people say it attacks your circulatory system too, so forth. So I wrote this book with different chapters addressing different mechanisms in your body, hypnotherapeutically, so there were hypnotic self-inductions, which I wrote in the book as text, but you can't read text and be hypnotized. So I recorded them and put them as audio files on the web, which are linked to the book, so that you don't have to read the chapters, you can listen to them. And these different hypnosis scripts, as they're called, addressed trying to take you on some sort of fantastic voyage into your kidney or into your liver or into your gut, lungs, heart, skin. And on the ridiculous suggestion that that could actually improve or invigorate or heal.
Why do you say ridiculous?
Because I don't know how it would work, except the kind of idea that it's hormonal, which isn't so ridiculous, but still the connection is pretty tenuous, and it's not accepted medically in most quarters. Also, it should be mentioned, hypnosis was traditionally used as an anesthetic for surgery so that you didn't need to be anesthetized or put out. And that's pretty weird. But I think we all have some experience of that, going to the dentist. And I'm not sure they were effectively hypnotized, but if you're good at it, you can sort of zone out, right? It's the zone out idea where you're no longer sensing things. And so you can use that, and they used it for, major abdominal surgery. It's like, I'm not sure I'm ready for it myself, but I have gone to the dentist and zoned out. But then I still get the Novocaine anyhow because I'm a coward or whatever,
Yeah, because you'll get zoned back in real quick. Yeah.
You'd think, but God knows. That's why I say I think it's very interesting. The whole idea that what's it called, psychoneuroimmunology, right?
Yeah, coming from the world of yoga, I've read a lot of stories and heard of a lot of people that, yogis can slow down the respiratory rate. They can stop their hearts. I mean, being able to use your mind to stop your heart, I mean, that's pretty impressive because that's a pretty major organ that's firing from the, back of the brainstem. And also people that, like you said, going into surgery can tell their body, okay, we're not going to bleed when we get cut into. And they've found that, people that can do that and have very minimal bleeding through surgery.
Yes, right. So hypnosis for surgery is apparently very effective at limiting bleeding and also accelerating recovery, like doubling the speed at which you can recover from surgery. So I don't know how is that. It's obviously not just bleeding.
Yeah, there's a story, I think it's in the autobiography of a yogi by Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, that talks about this yogi that this guy accidentally chopped off his arm with a machete. And the yogi was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Come back, see me tomorrow. And his arm was completely healed. I,
Well, I'm writing a book, I'm almost finished, on what's called interoception. Interoception. In other words, perception inside yourself. And its chapters, sort of like the COVID book, but different. So the COVID book talked about issues particular to COVID.
mm-hmm.
This interoception book talks about your whole body, again, through the organs and the systems, and offers hypnotic inductions for you to become more connected to those systems. And the latest one, and probably the last one, I'm pretty sure it's the last, is on lowering your blood pressure. So they don't tell you, but it's actually scientifically shown that you can lower your blood pressure.
Yeah.
So why do they give you all these statins and all these other drugs when it's possible and they don't tell you?
Mm-hmm.
So this is, how do you do it? This is my chapter in this book. How do you lower your blood pressure? And it's meditative and contemplative and other things. I wouldn't say it's exactly yoga. It's more like hypnotherapy. It's, in this particular case, developing an awareness of your blood pressure. So if you're careful, you can, well, you don't have to be careful. You can monitor your breath, even carelessly. But with more care and attention, you can monitor more subtle things about your breath, like your rhythm and the relaxation of your breath, the depth of your breath. And I enjoy the fact that you can inflate one lung differentially from the other lung. I mean, you can. Well, it's
A lot of
obvious.
people do that without realizing it, actually, from trauma or
Right.
illness.
Oh, and the whole business about your body being armored means that there's certain things in your body that aren't functioning optimally, that are habitually, not optimal because they're stressed or reactive.
Mm-hmm.
You get in an auto accident where your upper right chest is injured, and probably your upper right chest will be tense for a long time, if not forever,
Mm-hmm.
unless you do something about it, exercise it, think about it, work with it.
Yep.
So as you're saying, learning to sense your blood pressure, once you can sense something, then you can maybe do something about it. But before you can sense it, it's probably out of reach.
Sure.
So this is the story. You've got nerves everywhere, so why not?
Yeah. And if you think from a medical standpoint or a doctor standpoint, one, they're not trained to do that. Two, how are they going to train somebody to do that? And the easier quick fix is to give them a pill.
And also insurance, they're
Mm-hmm.
required. In fact, I heard somewhere that if a doctor spends more than 5 or 10 minutes, they could be under review for excessive charges
Yeah.
to insurance.
Yeah.
So they can't.
And they have to practice within the standard of care. And if not, then they can get sued for
Absolutely.
going outside the standard
Right,
of practice.
right.
And
All
all
this
those
stuff.
things you talked about aren't in the standard of practice.
Well, this is fucked up. I mean, seriously.
It is. Yeah, it is.
That's not the way we're built. That's not
Right.
even the way the world works.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, as a physicist, it's very interesting because you look at the history of science and how things became rational. They weren't all that rational for a long time. They were
Mm-hmm.
pretty whacked out. And rationality came on the scene, and it was very successful, and it continues to be successful. But it's interesting because, like, now the current political environment, when I say current, I mean the last 100 years, has taken people out of their comfort zone. This whole sort of geopolitical globalism. It's like people aren't trained to be global. They're trained to be family, community oriented. I mean, they're not even trained to be aware of their own bodies, for God's sakes. And so now they're dealing with other cultures, other languages, other
Mm-hmm.
histories, and all lineages. And I think over the last 100 years, people are getting, or have gotten, increasingly anxious. And so what's the modern cure for everything? Rationality? Well, that just doesn't work. Trying to understand your Sikh neighbor, rationality is not going to work. I get a lot of Sikh neighbors here, right? Because I'm in
Yeah,
Western
makes sense.
Canada.
Vancouver,
But,
yeah.
all right, Cuban, Haitian, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
this
mean,
is an emotional
there's
question.
definitely been a conscious effort by, and you brought that up, the word globalist, by especially in Canada with what Trudeau's done for the past, how long's he been in? 9 years. To make that happen, and to basically take just bring in these immigrants from all over the world to basically change the culture, but not only demographically, but for political reasons. And it has succeeded in Canada, and it's being tried here in certain states, depending on the local state politics. People hear this globalism conspiracy, and say, "Oh, this can't be the case," but it is the case. And if you really pay attention to what's going on, look at England and Scotland. They're like sometimes 40-50% of these communities have been taken over by other cultures, and now there's not even, some of these kids are going to school and they're the only English speaking or Scottish or people in those classrooms now, these kids. So the culture is being changed for whatever political reasons and the control that they're looking for, but it is definitely 100% happening.
It's
think it was on
interesting.
Duolingo that said that in Sweden, more people are learning the Swedish language than any other language on Duolingo. That's kind of fascinating.
In
Well,
Sweden.
it's
I think it was
interesting that
Sweden.
In a country, there's
Yeah.
more people in that country learning the
the
home
home
language than learning a
Any
right,
other.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
The
that's
implication being
because-
that they didn't know that language.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But
there's
it's
definitely
interesting.
there's a planned strategy to
Well, wait
to
a minute,
basically
Rick.
invade
Hold
the
on.
cultures.
This is the point. You use the word. Now I've forgotten the word you used. God, what was the word you used? They have taken over or something. It's like the word you used implies that England is for the English, or Florida is the Floridians.
No.
You said
Not
something
Florida.
that made me think
Not that Florida's for Floridians, but America should be for Americans.
Wait, what's the difference?
I'm all about that. Get us all out of here and get back to the Native
English
Americans.
should be English. And who took, but those Native Americans, which Native Americans would get
all
it
the
back?
ones that were here before the white
ones
man
that
came.
killed the other ones to take this over?
That's
Or
right.
how far do you have to go back?
It's very interesting. That's right. Because like in Pacific Northwest, the native tradition is very different from Eastern Indigenous or Central America, certainly, or Central U.S. Indigenous. So in the Western Canada, the Indigenous people were very community or small communities. They would fight each other, they would raid each other, and they don't like each other. It's not like the Hopis or the Navajos, which like own the whole, Western U.S. And they snipe at each other and they won't talk to each other. I'm talking about the local bands around here. So they weren't, well, when you talk about democratic and egalitarian, you think of the Iroquois nation. They were like the traditional inspiration for Benjamin Franklin and the independence movement in the colonies of the U.S. That's what it said. And so here you've got the demographics. I get increasingly more, I tell people this, I get increasingly more racist and prejudiced, not in the bad sense, but in the good sense. I'm interested in races, and I'm interested in your legacy and your lineage, your language and your culture. I'm more interested than I used to be because I see the colors more clearly. And I'm not saying that they mix or that they should mix. I'm more interested in the flavors they add, or in some cases take away. I don't know. I'm not, when you say Americans should be the Americans, that bothers me because I don't know who the Americans are. Like, who were they? Well, you meant it sort of humorously as the indigenous Americans, but like, you use that language and everyone hears it differently.
Okay, well, Canada has, we grew up in the Detroit area, so I have a lot. Used to go
Uh-huh.
over to Canada all the time. Have known a lot of Canadians.
Hmm.
Canada, as far as down here in Southwest Florida, we're like uh, you can't, in the wintertime, you can't go to anywhere without seeing, Ontario, Quebec plates down here. They're just
Uh-huh.
all over Canadians, which is great. I love Canadians. We share a common, most of the time, common Christian values, a common language, stuff like that. Now, I think we're getting a little off track because what I was saying is what there has been a facilitated invasion of certain Western cultures to destroy the original culture that was there. Should not a a, a
Wait.
culture have a cultural identity?
Did
Or
you mean invasion of or invasion by? Because I'm wondering where are the invaders coming from? Everywhere or but from the Western?
no, no. I'm specifically thinking of what's happening in Europe because Canada's right behind it,
Okay.
and we're only a few years behind you guys, or not you guys as Canadian. I'm saying
Right.
as from
Uh-huh.
Canada, from what's happening in Canada. And basically, what's happened in Europe, and I'm sure you know this, they have encouraged a Muslim invasion to the Western countries in Europe to the point right now that almost there's dozens and dozens of cities in the UK with Muslim mayors. They're Sharia law. There's more Muslims in the schools than
Yeah,
kids,
okay.
and they're having 6, 8 children each because that's what's encouraged, while it's being discouraged for uh the original people, the Scottish, the English, the Swedes, whatever, to have babies. They're having less.
Okay.
The
I got it. But
these
I
other
have to
cultures are
say,
coming in, and it's changing the entire demographics.
okay, but you can't use the word invasion without implying threat and fear.
I
And
am implying that it should be,
okay,
it is a threat, and it should be feared.
well, I don't think that's, I mean, I agree with you to some extent that it's different. And, Sharia law is like frightening. And I remember there's a Pakistani restaurant I used to go to in New York, and I talked to the owner, and he said, "I believe in Sharia law. If you steal, you should have your hand cut off." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, right? That would be invasion." But on the other hand, I don't know. I don't know this culture. I don't know what people mean. And like, why are they coming there? There's some demographic,
Because they're being paid to
economic.
to go. They're
They're being
being paid.
paid. Well,
They
they're being
are. They're being
incentivized.
subsidized.
Well, I don't know if there's certainly a push and a pull. There's some reason for them to leave in the first
Uh,
place.
well, until January here in the States, they were certainly being paid to free housing, free cars, free food, free medical care, free, free everything. And we were paying for it. Now, thank goodness that has stopped. Canada, it's still being encouraged. Uh, and we'll just see how long it goes. I remember the first trip I went to Toronto. I was probably 10 or 12 years old. We're there on a hockey trip, and we get in a cab, and you said you have Sikh neighbors. And I remember that's the first time I saw a guy with that thing on his head, the
Yeah.
turban look.
Yes.
And I really thought that was really cool. And like you said earlier, I'm all for getting to know and explore these other cultures. I my barbers are Vietnamese. All the guys in there are Vietnamese, and I go in there and start asking them about Vietnam because
Yeah.
I want to know more about their culture. I was in Key West shopping a few years ago, and we walk into a jewelry store, and he had some Far Eastern stuff, and I knew it was either Thailand or Cambodia. It turned out the guy was Cambodia, and I've been going back to there to say hi to that guy for years. And every time he talks about Cambodia, this and that, and I really enjoy learning those other things. So I'm not that tunnel vision say that I don't. I'm not where I don't want to have any of these people around me. I enjoy those cultures. I just think when other cultures come to a country or a place that when they're immigrated, they should attempt to assimilate into that culture.
Wait a minute. I can't accept that because there is no such thing as other cultures come. You have to say when other people come. It's the people who assimilate, not the culture. Culture's the culture.
Agreed. No, I stand
Yeah.
corrected. Then that's a good point.
And so the question is, I only think that happens when people start to understand each other. And you can be I think it's kind of pathetic. I shouldn't say that because it sounds mean, but you know, these like cultural institutions, the Ukrainian society, and it's like, come on. I mean, are you gonna have a dance or a dinner? It doesn't. I'm a therapist, right? We talk about things like what did your parents do to you, and what's your brother's wife's attitude, you know, personal, sensitive things. So it comes back to the smiling face. You know, I just don't want to see Ukrainian smiling faces or happy Vietnamese or happy Haitians. Talk about Haiti, like, oh my God, what a shit show. Um, I want to know what do the people feel like. So, you know, you could say, as in Florida, you could say we're invaded by Haitians. I don't know, Haiti is a place, perhaps one of the places in the world I would most want to get out of if I lived there.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's like, how do you get to know these people? And I think what you're doing is great. You go to the barber, you go to the jeweler. I don't know, maybe you go to the Ukrainian dance. I tried that once. It didn't move me, but you know.
If you there's a place not far from here called Warm Mineral Springs, and it's inside a huge Ukrainian community in Northport. I walked in there one time, and it literally was off the ultimate stereotype of the fat Ukrainian guy in the white robe in the in this,
Yeah.
you know, mineral bath, which is supposed to have these fountain of youth
Healing
features and
powers.
stuff like
Oh yeah,
that.
cool. Yeah.
So they're but those that group of people and those Ukrainian, when they come here, they're sure they have their I don't know, not really mosques. They have that Ukrainian church or whatever, and they're all there's many churches up there. They're all nice people. They just decided when they came here to immigrate to the United States that they were going to become Americans. My biggest beef is
Hmm.
what you met, and I only bring this up because you mentioned the globalism,
Yeah.
and so there are powers that be that are looking to destroy these certain cultures, especially in Western Europe. And like I said earlier, Canada's right behind them, and we're just a few years behind the Canadians. So,
Well, this is funny because this takes us back to the melting pot of the 1940s, which is sort of
Hmm.
my heritage. My ancestors, were only tongue grandparents, came from slightly Eastern Europe, you know, Ukraine and Russia and Poland. And they entered the melting pot and they tried to become Americans. I don't know, I guess maybe they didn't try so much, but they were encouraged to do that. And it's interesting because my father, on my mother's side, they didn't try so hard. They remained sort of parochial Jewish stereotyped, you know, matzah ball eaters. And on my father's side, there was this great effort to become waspy and Protestant and wealthy. And my father achieved that. And I remember as a kid, I would hang out with all these waspy Protestant, I don't know if they were Jewish, they probably were, but they had shed it and they lived in Tudor mansions and ran corporations and were completely secular in appearance. And my father was an architectural photographer, so, you know, architects are one of the weirder bunch, as Ayn Rand pointed out. And as the Matrix points out, they are the designers of your world, and they can be some really strange people in their sort of megalomaniacal tendency. So these were the people I was around, the melting pot and the megalomaniacs and the wealthy and the once Jewish and the still Jewish. And I'm just a kid. I don't know what's going on. It's
Yeah.
rather weird.
well, but
So
in the
you're
40s
sort
and
of
50s,
talking about that.
Yeah.
but
Obviously, Rick's way more political and keeping up with this stuff than I am. I've got this view that we're on one spaceship and we're destroying the spaceship. So instead of
well,
fighting, we need to figure this out because we can't live on a spaceship that's
hey, I'm all fine with that.
polluted with no
But
oxygen or water or food.
but there is a difference though, because in the 40s and 50s, and our grandfather, we're cousins, and when our grandfather came off the boat in the 20s from Italy, you know, him and his families, they didn't come over here. They came over here with something to give, and they wanted to become part of the culture. They weren't asking to be supported. So I'm all for immigration. I'm all for the melting pot. I think that's the great thing. That's what the United States was built on. but you can't have unlimited immigration and an unlimited welfare state. And that's what is happening, and that's what has happened and now is stopped here, but it's still going on around the world. So once again, I'm big favor of immigration, and I think it's a great thing if it's done legally, and I don't have to support that person. And I don't think there could be an argument against that.
Well, you can't say that if you're for it. Is it a vapid support, or are you willing to put something into it? I mean,
I'm not
if you're giving it value, then you must be getting something from it. Wouldn't it
right.
be fair to say
I
you
would
should
be
be paying
getting
for it?
I would be getting the productivity and the talent that immigrant would bring to my community.
So what are you willing to pay for that?
Why should it cost me anything? It should be
Because it's expensive.
it's not. What is expensive?
Relocating.
Well, when our grandfathers did it,
that
and you
person-
mentioned the melting pot, were they
They didn't get
subsidized?
supported. They weren't subsidized.
Well, I don't really know. They struggled. There was a lot of poverty. There was instability. And maybe it would have been better if they got. No, I'm not saying you have to welfare state. It was like, what's the incentive? What are the barriers? If you want it to happen, seems like you've got to put some skin in the game. Like, well, it's interesting. In
Like
Canada,
what?
it was fairly easy for me to immigrate to Canada. They were very clear. They had limits and quotas, and I came in as a skilled worker, and Canada's sort of a welfare state
Yeah,
anyway.
you had something to bring to the table.
Did you
Yeah.
get subsidized for moving
You
to
didn't get
Canada?
yeah, they didn't pay you to go.
Did they? Well, they they didn't pay me as a foreigner, but they give incentives to people who have kids or who are below a poverty line. They do that stuff. That's Canadian.
Well, you don't look like you're below the poverty line. So in
Oh, really? Well, thank you very much.
In your anecdotal case, you brought something to the table. You have a skill, you have an income, you obviously have means. You weren't going there to basically leech off the state. And
Yeah, but
right?
okay. But I'm still saying that there seems to be a fair trade. If it costs to immigrate and you want certain immigrants, granted you have your criteria, then you should be doing something to make it happen. Otherwise, you're just waiting for it to like fall on you. And so typically the things you do are they're immigrant services. And those, I don't know who supports those, but maybe the state. They help you educate, they teach you the language,
So it sounds like the difference is being open to foreigners coming and then paying foreigners for coming. I think those are two different things.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Right.
So I would say that what your point you just brought up, hey, there's foreigner services. I would say that we would, and there are programs that there was just this H-1B visa debate here in the States a couple months ago, but where companies can say, hey, we need engineers, we need software developers, we need physicians, we need nurses, we need whatever high skilled labor. Let's go get them. Let's go to India. Let's go to Africa. Let's go pull some of these people from around the world that can bring and add value to our country and our place, who want to be here and become assimilated into our American culture. And sign me up. I'm all for that.
I think
Okay,
we see
well,
that every time we go to the hospital. I mean, there's not a doctor with.
No.
And I'm all for those being in, but I'm not paying for those docs, and I'm glad they're here.
Well, then let's just to be on the touchy side, what about people who are really screwed, like in Sudan or, really, I don't say Bangladesh, I don't know, Calcutta or something. Do you, or a plague-ridden Africa, I don't know. Do you want to, what do you call it? Help those people?
I think
What do you think about that?
I think there are people locally that help people. Like I know my aunt in Kalamazoo, they help all type of people that come over, like during the Iraqi war when people were leaving. Most recently helping Afghanis and different other nationalities that come over, but it's not the federal government helping, it's local people that are helping. And I think that's a
understand.
beautiful thing.
Well,
Yeah,
But when it's full tax dollars, going to helping everybody that comes over. And I know a lot of the Republic. I'm Green Party. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I think of both two corrupt parties personally. But when you got people coming over that, the idea is that they're being subsidized because now they're a vote for a certain party. That's kind of a problem.
yeah, I agree.
So
I agree. But I just don't
I,
know. What do you do about the boat people from Haiti? You turn
okay,
them
okay.
back?
Well, there's a town there was a big year or so back. I can't remember the name of Springfield, Ohio, I think. Their town of like 110,000 people, small town, about the same size we live in here in South Florida.
is that where they eat the dogs?
Well, that was where the dog eating comment came up. They're eating the pet,
Oh,
but
man.
literally in a town of 100,000, they brought in over a couple of years 40 to 50,000 Haitians, all Haitians. So what that did, that all the Haitians they didn't assimilate, they don't, and they basically had their own little part of town. They all moved in together. Now it's all Haiti town, and
It's
the
like
rest of the
Dearborn
town.
in Michigan that
No,
you grew up with.
I get it.
Not much different.
No, there's not a difference, but literally those. I'm all for helping people, and over the last, especially 50, 60, 70 years, Americans have been more generous than any other country as far as around the world helping people, from earthquakes or disasters or famines or fires or whatnot. So I don't think Americans, we all want to be good to other people. At least I do. I'm all for helping people. I just want, I would rather have the power to do it myself with my own money and not have the government do it. So let me subsidize who I want to. I don't need to be
Mhm.
told who to do.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I can see that when people lose representation, they get aggrieved. They say, I'm
Yeah.
putting this money in for national purposes, and somebody outside my purview is redirecting it in ways that I
To
feel are,
undermine my values.
yeah.
That's
Well,
to
I
finish
think,
your sentence.
yeah, I don't see. I mean, if our attempt is to make statements that everyone can agree with, I think we've achieved that.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that that's effective in terms of resolving people's issues. But there we have it.
Yeah.
Okay. I, I mean,
But
I object
We
to.
never talk politics on this.
Oh,
Yeah,
Never. We
right, right.
never
that's not
do.
true. That's
Well,
not
But
very
this,
rarely.
Yeah, it's
but
very
this
We
is,
rare.
don't dig deep. We don't drill down like we've been doing here.
Yeah, this is
but
right
yeah,
up Rick's alley here. I got to, since we've been talking politics though, you wrote something, I believe it's on your blog. I noticed it at the beginning before your podcast episodes. You wrote about Donald Trump, and you said that Donald Trump is the greatest threat to the nation. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to the nation since the Civil War. And I didn't read your whole article, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and why.
oh, I don't think we can go there. It's too big an issue. It's like going into a forest fire with a pail of water. I, I, I guess I would just say he's not affecting what you would call representative policies. He's
What do you mean by that?
they're not broadly representative. There's marginal policies. It's liminal attitudes. It's uh, I would object to what he's doing in the same way that Rick objects to spending money to uh, fund programs that don't represent local interests.
Well,
So
the
I don't think he's
majority of them,
representing local interests. Put it that way.
I would
Okay.
challenge that because first of all, he won the popular vote, so which is unusual for a Republican candidate. So a majority of American voters did vote for him. And I just saw a couple polls just a few days ago that would you still vote for Donald Trump today if the election was held today? And there was a 2% bump. So
But being popular isn't necessarily saying the same thing as what he's saying, though.
well, sure it is because
No, he's saying that he's not representing people's interests. Just because you're popular
well,
and
people
you'll get voted for,
people vote for their
doesn't mean
interests.
well they don't know. They don't always know what's happening.
Yeah, well, we're
A lot
talking
of people
about.
vote with no idea what's
There's
happening in
uninformed
politics.
voters for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
most of
we're talking about slightly different things. You were talking about
Yeah.
what people thought when they were voting, and I'm talking about what people are experiencing now
Right.
with 100 days. So, what I mean, there's uncertainty here, but that was what I meant. So, Jim asked me what I meant, that's what I meant. That's a simple answer to what I meant, I think.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you don't have to agree, but
no,
that's what I
I
meant.
just don't understand. I would like to hear your basis for that.
No,
Because
you
it doesn't
won't.
make
No,
sense to me
we don't
because
have time.
that those are counterproductive though. That those are,
You
I mean,
mean
that
contrary?
counterproductive that they're
Conflicting?
conflicting.
Yeah, well, I just think that you'll see that a lot more negative reaction as people feel that the programs are not producing what they expected emerges. That's my prediction. The
Yeah.
actions will not produce what people expected and what they wanted, and whatever.
I think maybe 6 months from now would be a better indicator of whether
Okay.
or not
Well,
that would
sure.
be the
Yeah,
case.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. But I want to get back to spirituality. Sorry.
Cool.
I,
That's the part I like.
yeah, I think so. Because the politics stuff, I can appreciate not getting involved because it kind of just goes around and around until it
Yeah.
goes down the drain. And
Right.
and I'm more into well, as a therapist, I'm interested in resolving things. But okay, so here's the segue. A lot of people who come to me with issues, they don't really want to solve them. They want to resolve them. In other words, they want happy times again. They don't want solutions. They want comfort, right? This is typical with relationship problems. You don't want to solve it. You want to make it good. And often people who
Isn't that
come
the
to,
same thing? If you solve the problem, wouldn't it be good? Or...
not necessarily, the solution may be separation. Making it
Okay.
good
Yeah.
is
Good point.
often,
Yeah.
and it gets more complicated when there are kids involved. So it is not really a
Yeah.
clear passage to
Sure.
good or solution. So I'm interested more in solutions than in goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be nice if you like the solution, but liking is a subjective thing. So I talk to people, and I do use hypnosis to try to get their real feelings out of them. And then I talk to them about their brains and how they're habitually reacting or overreacting in ways that undermine their intentions. And then there's communication, right? So a typical thing would be domestic violence or somebody who gets violent and angry. Why do you get violent and angry? It's because it's expressive and it's a release. And is it successful? Almost never directly, but maybe it gets things moving, not in the direction you wanted usually, but in some direction. So um, I try to direct people towards spirit. Well, I don't know, it sounds like far-fetched when that's not really their point, but I try to tell people that if you don't have a sense of purpose and value, you're not really running on much. And if you don't have a sense of value in other people, you're probably not going to generate a lot of respect and collaboration with them. So often with people with relationships, I'll say to them, what really is love to you? And that's a kind of bottomless question. And I think it's a good question. You can never finish answering it. And it's never irrelevant, especially in relationships. On the other hand, it's hard to get clarity with that question. Well, you'd think it wouldn't be, but it is. You can talk around it all day, but if your spouse or partner is listening to you, you're not necessarily making progress in their mind. So it's communication. So the idea of spirit, purpose, meaning, has to be mixed with the idea of communication. The big issue I think a lot of people have with Eastern religions is that they have a lot of spirit, but they're not very compelling to the Western mind. You know, don't worry, be happy was like the tradition. Who said that? I can't remember his name, but
Bobby
Marley?
Darin. No, Bobby McFerrin.
Yeah, Bobby McFerrin. You're right.
no, it wasn't him,
Very
but he may have
popular
said it
song.
too. But it doesn't cut it with our Western rational mind. So this is why here we get back to my the three piers on which I stand. How does your brain work? How do your emotions trigger you? And what are you thinking or how do you rationalize your situation? And it seems that they're never entirely balanced, and you can always do better with them. You can always improve them. So whatever you think your strengths are, my focus is on your weaknesses. And like I was saying before, you can't fix anything unless you see it.
Mm-hmm.
So the effort is to see your brain's habits, or to see your emotional tendencies, or your intellectual prejudice. And a lot of people don't like to see that because it's revealing, it's vulnerable. It may be their weaker side. But shit, I mean, if you're trying to get stronger, you deal with your weaker side. Doesn't that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want to strengthen your upper body, you don't do squat thrusts all day.
True.
And also, I was a mountaineer, and I guess you're always a mountaineer. And the idea of risk and engagement was very important for me in that. Also, mountaineering involves commitment and communication and being reliable. Those are also important to me. And so I encourage people to be more like that, engaged, courageous, committed.
Mm-hmm.
These are kind of mountaineering terms, but they're life terms too. And to me, that's spiritual.
Yeah. Did you read Scott Peck's book? His first one, I think it was "Walk to the Beat of Your Own Drum" or something like that.
Oh, no, not that first one. I read some of the others.
It's anyway, but he talks about love in that book, and he talks about all the different types of love, like falling in love, or you love somebody, conditional love, all these
Yeah.
different types of love. And I think unconditional love is the ultimate in love. I think that's what Jesus taught about, and what a lot of scripture talks about is unconditional love. But I think that most people actually can't handle unconditional love.
I
I mean, if you
agree.
love everybody unconditionally, people freak out.
Hmm.
It would ruin relationships. I mean, how do we get to a point that people can handle unconditional love?
I think it's kind of a false notion. Unconditional, what does that mean? It means whatever they do, you love them? No. Is that what it means? What does it mean?
Yeah. Why can't you love somebody unconditionally?
Well, what about those serial killers? You gonna love them? I mean, you
Yeah.
can say
Why
yes.
not?
Well,
We
because they'll
had
kill
we had an
you.
amazing podcaster on that talked about a serial killer, basically, that abducted a woman, raped her, took her out to the woods to murder her. And through this, she just kept unconditionally loving him and sending him as much compassionate energy as she could. And when it came to the point of him murdering her, he couldn't do it. She
Well,
just totally overcome his whatever energy and badness he had in him. That
well,
that unconditional love and compassion overcame whatever he had, and she ended up saving her life from it.
I can see Rick there sitting there saying, "That's not the way I want to
Uh,
deal with the threats in my life."
yeah,
But
I'm
But
well.
he's also on the spiritual train of a newfound
Well, it's
thing of
not.
Christianity, and he believes in the Bible, and Jesus definitely taught about unconditional love. Love
Well,
thy
right,
enemy.
right, right.
well, and
And if you're going to get on that board, on that train, you can't be hanging off the caboose.
Well,
You got to
here's
be
what
up
I
in the
don't like.
engine
Here's what I
compartment.
don't like about unconditional love. It broaches an area where you're lacking judgment, right? Because you're whatever you say, I'm going to
Is that
accept.
necessary to lack judgment to have unconditional love?
Maybe it could
I think
be. It
I
could
don't
I
be.
think
would
so. I
agree.
disagree.
Well, okay. I mean, this is the important area. I
Yeah,
think you do have to still have judgment.
I
So the
agree.
question is, well, you still have judgment, discernment, criteria,
Hmm.
values. How
Hmm.
do you use them when they're contradicted or threatened or rejected? And you could say, well, I just have faith. I don't know what you say. Or you know, I just don't know. That's like the critical thing. So here you come to a therapist, and am I to be accepting? Well, sometimes I am, but I'm also discerning. I'm also rejecting. I'll say, no, I don't believe that, or I think that's a mistake. Am I being accepting of you when I tell you that I think you're making a mistake? I am, in a sense. If I'm advocating your higher purpose,
Hmm.
I'm saying, no, you're contrary to your own spiritual purpose. That's me accepting your spiritual purpose, but rejecting your rationalization of some, short-term plan you've got. Okay, Rick, talk.
I think you're only going to have, well, personally, myself, well, Jesus didn't preach unconditional love to everybody.
What?
There was, he destroyed the money changers at the temple. His apostles, basically, when the rich people would hold back money, then said, we're going to give this all to the temple to promote God's word and the prophecy and Jesus' teachings, but they held back. And then I'm not sure what apostle it was, but basically struck both them, struck first the husband, then the wife dead for basically lying to God regarding their tithe to the church. So there's nothing unconditional loving about Jesus. He's pretty strict.
I would disagree with that entirely.
Well, then I think you'd be incorrect. Now, as far
are we communicating here? And I think the answer is sort of, yeah, okay. But this is interesting because
I think you could flip tables and have an outrage, but still love people unconditionally.
Well, that's true. But there was, I would love to get into this longer. Obviously, we don't have time for that today. But
well, let's do another talk about unconditional love. That would be
cool.
If we just stick on that.
Yeah,
we would get somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things I brought up just because I was intrigued by. I really don't like political discussions, and I kind of led us there through some of this stuff. But yeah, I would love to do that.
So when he teed that up for me, I just ran with it because I usually don't go there either because that's not where we usually go. But I love the topics, and I feel very passionate about about certain things. So.
Well, it's interesting because that thing I wrote about Trump and Trumpism really said that it's all about people acting emotionally and not engaging rational tactics. Which is the point that I was making. And that's why I thought it was threatening, because I believe, I'm not sure how strongly, that, the global issues are better dealt with rationally than emotionally.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not saying anything, but that's my sort of approach. I was a physicist, right? So I do tend to think, I'd like to have an understandable solution to things. And emotions are not as understandable as reason, but maybe more important. I don't know. So do we veer toward love or do we veer toward politics? I think this is a pretty major ridge that divides us.
Yeah.
And so you say you try to avoid it. Maybe you should engage it. But what I hear you saying is that it's so easy to get lost on either side of this ridge. And I agree. So how do you stay on the ridge? Or if that's how do you knock down the ridge? How do you integrate the two? I don't. Yeah. You go to therapy. That's how.
I think it needs a paradigm shift in consciousness, the way we think about the world, our planet, others, and things aren't going to change until we have that major paradigm shift.
Well, what's it going to look like, and what's it going to take?
I don't know what it's going to take, but I think it looks like us all understanding the oneness, the thread that weaves between all of us. I mean, we're not different. We're not separate. We've got one planet. We're all on this spaceship. Globally, we're not taking care of it, and we're not taking care of each other. And when we recognize the oneness of this spaceship that we're on, we recognize the oneness of the creatures that are living on this planet, then maybe we'll make better decisions. At least I hope we'll make better decisions, because we think of everything as separate. We don't take care of the dirt. We don't take care of the water. We don't take care of the air. It's all becoming contaminated. We don't take care of each other. We're bombing the hell out of the country. We're making a mess, and there's nothing different between the soil and us. If we can't treat the soil nice, we're screwing ourselves.
Well, it comes back to the question that I asked before: how much are you willing to pay for it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we are paying for it.
Us.
We are paying for it now with the rise in sickness.
I know, but how much are you willing to put federal money? Put it like really. Mm-hmm. How much of your?
Oh, I'm 100%. I'm 100% of changing our money, where we take all of what we're paying for in in our war machine, take the war chest and put it into creating harmony and health on this planet.
Would
So
you
I'm
would
into
you
that.
really, would you take away all defense spending and put it into
Yeah,
sustainable?
I would.
I
I
think
would.
that would
Amazing.
be I think that
I
would be
would in a
silly.
heartbeat.
And I would only agree with you if that you said, let's take away war chest spending and this. I mean, the United States spends like 3 times more than the rest of the world combined on national defense. So
Yeah.
clearly we could spend less. But I would only agree with that statement if they said, okay, all this money that you want to make peace and harmony and love with, give it back to us, you, me, across the street, the people, and let us make the choice on where it goes. Let us donate to our churches who can then promote this goodness.
But isn't this what they fought the Civil War about? States' rights to some extent.
States, right?
Yeah, each state
Well, yeah.
being able to make its own decisions. That was part of the reason that
Right,
they
but
fought the war, they say.
but states don't make foreign policy.
I thought they kind of wanted to. I'm not sure what they really wanted in the Civil War. But anyway, it's you're kind of going in that direction. The more autonomy the states have, the less the federal has. And I'm just
Correct.
saying,
Which I agree with 100%.
but see, Jim is very much the opposite. He wants everyone to support the ecological sustainability and, you know, all good stuff of shepherding the earth.
If you think of us being on a submarine, you know,
He only brings that up because we're both submarine veterans.
but it's a good analogy. It's a good analogy. We're on the ship flying through space, basically, like being on a submarine, you know, and if you pollute all the drinking water and if you pollute all the air and you ruin the food, you can't live in the submarine.
Okay, and we all speak the same language. We all have.
Why do we have to speak the same language?
On the submarine, we all spoke the same language.
We did on that sub, but we don't have to.
Ate the same food.
Exactly. We all do eat the same food.
So that is totally different than the world culture. You're not going to be able to wave a magic wand and get everyone to agree.
Oh, I like to see the two of you fight with each other. That's existential here.
Yeah. It's that's because we don't have that paradigm shift. And if we had that paradigm shift where we recognized where we're at and that we're one, we could make those changes quickly, easily.
I don't know.
Well,
then you totally have to stop all identity politics.
Oh.
You'd have to say, okay, no more Black History Month, no more Pride Month. We're just all one big human thing. Which
there you go. I'm in favor.
If that was fine, if that was the way it would be, I would be fine with that.
Well, I would too. Hey, we've agreed on something.
Let's go.
Oh. Let's go.
Because I'm
How do we create this paradigm shift of understanding oneness?
We stop practicing identity politics and celebrating those things that divide us, like you mentioned, the Italian American Club, or these clubs that were especially designed for a cultural area. You know,
can't we recognize our oneness and celebrate our diversity at the same time?
I'd have to give that some thought. I don't know how does that look to you in an ideal world?
Okay, so you're celebrating Italian American Month or whatever. Cool. We're all one. Hey, maybe we'll join your celebration. But it doesn't mean we're separate just because we.
So in that culture, so what if you don't? What if that is a religious ideology, which in your perfect world would have to be tolerated by other religions, when a third or half of the world population is Muslim, which has a zero tolerance for Christianity or Judaism?
Well, that's not 100. That's you can't say that. You can't say that the Muslim community has zero tolerance for anybody else, because that's not true.
Obviously, there is tolerance in here in the United States for that, and not every Muslim is a crazy zealot. I get that, and
there are Christians that are crazy zealots.
And if I said that, I misspoke, but because I certainly didn't mean that. Mm-hmm. But if you go over to Israel and the Middle East right now and look what's going on,
so if you had the paradigm shift, and by the way, you're moving your goalpost, to just point that out. If you had the paradigm shift, then we all recognize the oneness, right? One God, oneness, call it what you want. Stick with your religion, stick with your culture, but you recognize the oneness and that we're all in this together. This one planet is all the same. All the people all the same. You're going to make different
I'll
decisions.
grant you that, but
We've had major paradigm shifts in this world that made huge dramatic shifts around the world. If we can get this one paradigm shift,
when was
it
the
would
last
change
major
everything.
paradigm shift?
Probably how we define time.
The birth of Jesus, I would say.
No, there wasn't a paradigm shift when Jesus was born.
Well, the birth of Christianity, yeah, or 2,000 years ago. That's what I would say the last major paradigm shift was. And what probably got closest to your idealistic society that you want.
Really?
Wouldn't it be? You just said he preaches love and tolerance and oneness.
Yeah.
So then wouldn't that
We left our guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that became religion, and then the religion ended up killing millions of people to fight for their religion. Yes. Long way from oneness. All right, man. Hey, Lincoln, any final thoughts?
Let's do this again though.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it again.
If you can tolerate me.
Or
No,
us.
I think we're I think we have we have our teeth into it. I think it's good. I think my final words.
Yeah.
I encourage people to talk about their differences and engage in their struggles and recognize that they have power to change things and should be courageous about facing it. I think it's our obligation at many levels. So
Those are very wise words.
Good final thought. Well, hey, Lincoln, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. And we'd love to have you back.
Okay. Wonderful. Take care. I'll see you later.
So if you just listen to this podcast and you appreciate the content and the work that we're doing, we would love your support. Look in the comment section of this episode. Subscribe, rate us, comment. This gets our podcast in front of other listeners. And if you noticed, we don't have advertisers. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help keep it this way. Become a supporter right now. We'd appreciate it. I'm Jim the Yogi.
I'm Rick the BeachMan.
Peace.